Jake Morrison opened his eyes and saw white. Everything around him was white, and clean, and bright. The ceiling glowed with soft light that did not hurt to look at. He tried to sit up, but his body felt heavy, like he had been sleeping for days. Where was he? The last thing Jake remembered was his cargo shuttle near Jupiter. He had been hauling medical supplies to the mining stations on Europa. Then the alarms started screaming. His instruments went crazy. Space itself seemed to tear open in front of him, a swirling mass of colors that should not exist. He remembered pulling hard on the controls, trying to turn away, then nothing. A door opened with a soft sound. Jake turned his head and saw her. She was tall and slim, with skin that glowed faint blue like ice under moonlight. Her eyes were silver, actually silver, without any white parts at all. She wore a simple gray uniform that looked like it was made from liquid metal. She moved toward his bed with grace, her steps silent on the smooth floor. Jake tried to speak, but his throat was dry. She reached his bedside and looked down at him. Her face was beautiful but strange, with features that were almost human, but not quite right. Her eyes held something that looked like sadness and hope mixed together. She leaned over him, close enough that he could smell something like rain and electricity. Her silver eyes locked onto his. "You're ready now," she whispered. Before Jake could ask what she meant, the woman straightened and walked out of the room. The door closed behind her with a whisper of air. Jake stared at the ceiling. Ready for what? He forced himself to sit up. His muscles protested, but they worked. He looked down at his hands. They looked normal. 10 fingers, familiar calluses from years of piloting. But something felt different. Wrong. Or maybe right, in a way he could not explain. The door opened again. This time a human woman entered. She was maybe 40 years old, with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. She wore a white coat over regular clothes. She smiled when she saw him sitting up. "Jake Morrison, right?" she said. Her voice was warm and friendly. "I'm Dr. Vera Ashton. How are you feeling?" "Where am I?" Jake's voice came out rough. "What happened?" Vera pulled a chair close to his bed and sat down. "You're aboard a Valak ship called the Meridian. We're currently in orbit around Saturn. You've been here for 6 weeks. 6 weeks? Jake felt his stomach drop. That's impossible. The anomaly? It just happened. I was flying and then you got pulled into a spatial tear, Vera said gently. Your shuttle was torn apart, Jake. We found pieces scattered across 300,000 kilometers. But we found you in an escape pod. Unconscious, but alive. Jake touched his chest. He felt solid. Real. 6 weeks. He repeated. I don't remember any of that. You've been in medical suspension, Vera explained. Your body needed time to heal. The anomaly did something to you, Jake. Something we've never seen before. The woman who was just here, Jake said. The one with blue skin. Who was she? That was Lieutenant Kira. She's been your primary physician. The Valaks are experts in medical technology far beyond what we have on Earth. Vera paused. What did she say to you? She said I was ready now. Jake met Vera's eyes. Ready for what? Vera looked uncomfortable. There's a lot you need to know. About where we are. About what's happening with Earth. About what the anomaly did to you. Over the next hour, Vera explained everything. The Valaks were an alien species that governed a coalition of 12 different races. They had been watching humanity for decades, waiting to see if Earth was ready to join the larger galactic community. That community was called the Galactic Assembly, and it included hundreds of different species from across this part of the galaxy. Earth wanted to join. No, Earth needed to join. The technology and knowledge the Assembly could share would solve so many problems back home. Clean energy. Medical cures. Faster than light travel that actually worked. But there was a problem. A big one. Every species in the Assembly has something called a resonance, Vera said. It's a unique trait or ability that makes them valuable to the galactic community. The Valaks can manipulate gravity with their minds. The Croton can survive in any environment. The Soltari can communicate across vast distances instantly, without any technology. And humans? Jake asked. What's our resonance? That's the problem. We don't know yet. Vera looked worried. We've been trying to figure it out for 3 years now. The assembly is patient, but they won't wait forever. If we can't prove we have something unique to contribute, they won't accept us. Jake did not understand what any of this had to do with him. He was just a cargo pilot. He flew supplies between stations and tried to make enough credits to pay his bills. He was nobody special. Why are you telling me this? He asked. Vera stood up and walked to a panel on the wall. She touched it, and the panel lit up with images. Jake saw scans of a human body. His body, he realized. But something was wrong with the images. There were colors and patterns that should not be there. The anomaly changed you, Jake, Vera said quietly. Your neural pathways are different now. Your brain activity shows patterns we've never recorded before. And that's not all. Also, she turned back to him. Do you feel anything strange? Anything different?
6 hard of the 1, of the Ford and 1.
Jake thought about it. Now that she mentioned it, yes, there was something. A constant low buzz in the back of his mind, like hearing music from far away. And when he focused on it, the buzz got stronger. He could almost feel the ship around him. The walls, the systems, the power flowing through conduits he could not see. I feel the ship, he said slowly. I know that sounds crazy, but I can feel it. Like it's alive. Vera's eyes went wide. That's what we thought. Jake, you're sensing electromagnetic fields. The anomaly exposed you to quantum fluctuations that rewired your brain. You've developed abilities that shouldn't be possible. What kind of abilities? We're still figuring that out. But Lieutenant Kira thinks you might be the answer we've been looking for. You might be humanity's resonance. Jake laughed. But it came out bitter. I'm not special, Doc. I'm just a guy who flies cargo ships. There's got to be a mistake. There's no mistake. The voice came from the doorway. Jake looked up and saw Lieutenant Kira standing there. Her silver eyes fixed on him with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. She walked into the room with that same silent grace. Jake Morrison, she said, you have become something we have never encountered. Your species has hidden potential that even you do not understand. The quantum exposure should have killed you. Every simulation we ran said you would die within seconds of contact. But I didn't die, Jake said. No. You did not die. You changed. Kira moved closer. Your DNA contains sequences that activated during the exposure. Sequences that exist in all humans but remain dormant. You are the first human to awaken them. Why me? What makes me different? Kira tilted her head, studying him. That is what we must discover. But know this. Jake Morrison. You are ready now, whether you believe it or not. The question is not if you have become something new. The question is whether you will survive long enough to understand what you have become. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. He looked at Vera, who would not meet his eyes. He looked back at Kira, who stared at him with those impossible silver eyes. What happens if I don't survive? He asked. Kira's expression did not change. Then humanity loses its chance at the stars, and you become just another casualty of first contact. We have seen it happen before with other species. The transition to quantum consciousness is difficult. Most do not make it. So I'm an experiment, Jake said flatly. You are hope, Kira corrected. For your species and for mine. We need humans in the assembly, Jake Morrison. We need what you can become. But first, you must learn to control what you are. She turned and walked toward the door. Before she left, she looked back at him one more time. Rest now. Tomorrow, your real training begins. And then you will understand why you are ready. Sense. The door closed. Jake sat in silence, feeling the ship pulse around him like a living heartbeat. 6 weeks. He had lost 6 weeks of his life. And somehow, in that time, he had stopped being just Jake Morrison, cargo pilot. Now he was something else, something that scared him, something that might save humanity or destroy it. He closed his eyes and tried to ignore the buzzing in his head. But it would not stop. The ship called to him, and deep down, some new part of him wanted to answer. The next 5 days felt like living in a dream that would not end. Jake spent his mornings in a testing room where machines measured everything about him. His brain waves, his heart rate, the way his body responded to different stimuli. The Valix scientists, all with that same blue glowing skin, watched him with their silver eyes and took notes on devices he could not begin to understand. But the afternoons were worse. That was when Kira made him practice. "Focus on the wall panel," she would say, pointing at some random piece of equipment. "Tell me what you feel." At first, Jake felt nothing but foolish. He was a pilot, not some kind of mystic. But Kira was patient, and slowly, Jake began to understand. The buzzing in his head was not random. It was information. When he focused on a wall panel, he could sense the power flowing through it. He knew when a circuit was about to fail. He could feel the temperature of components without touching them. It scared him how natural it felt. On the 6th day, Commander Helen Wright came to see him. She was a stern woman in her 50s, with gray hair cut, military short, and eyes that missed nothing. She wore an Earth Forces uniform with enough medals to show she had earned her rank the hard way. "Morrison," she said, walking into his room without knocking. "We need to talk." Jake had been sitting on his bed, trying to meditate like Kira had taught him. He stood up quickly. "Commander, sit down," Helen said. But her tone made it sound like an order, not a suggestion. She pulled up the chair Vera always used. "How much has Dr. Ashton told you about the political situation?" "Just the basics. Earth wants into the Galactic Assembly. We need a resonance to prove we're worth accepting." Helen nodded. "That's the simple version. Here's the complicated one. The Assembly is divided about us. Some species think humanity is too young, too aggressive. They look at our history and see nothing but war and violence. They don't want us out here spreading that chaos across the galaxy. And the other species? The other species think we might be useful. The Valix have been pushing hard for our admission. They see potential in us. But potential isn't enough. We need proof." Helen leaned forward. "You're that proof, Morrison. Or at least, you might be." "I'm not a diplomat," Jake said. "I'm not even a soldier anymore. I got out of the service years ago because I was tired of taking orders. This isn't about orders. This is about survival." Helen's voice was hard. "If we don't get into the Assembly, Earth stays isolated. We stay trapped in our own solar system while every other species moves past us. We lose access to technology that could cure diseases, clean our planet, feed our people. And eventually, when some hostile species decides we're a threat, we'll have no allies to call on." Jake felt a weight settle onto his shoulders. "That's not fair. I didn't ask for any of this. Life isn't fair, Morrison. You think I asked to be the one explaining to Earth that our entire future might depend on one cargo pilot who got lucky?" Helen stood up. "But here we are. So the question is, what are you going to do about it?" Before Jake could answer, the door opened and a young man rushed in. He was maybe 25, with messy brown hair and grease stains on his uniform. He carried a datapad that glowed with information. "Commander Wright, sorry to interrupt, but you need to see this." He noticed Jake and gave a quick nod. "You must be Morrison. I'm Danny Hayes, Chief Engineer." "Well, Chief Human Engineer. The Valix have their own people, but they let me poke around in their systems." "What did you find, Hayes?" Helen asked. Danny's expression turned serious. The anomaly that grabbed Morrison's shuttle wasn't natural. "I've been analyzing the data we collected from the incident. The quantum signatures don't match anything that occurs naturally in space." Jake felt his stomach tighten. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying someone created that anomaly on purpose. They built it, aimed it, and waited for you to fly through it. Danny pulled up images on his datapad. Look at these energy patterns. This was engineered, probably by technology way beyond what we have on Earth. The Valaks, Jake said quietly. The pieces fell into place in his mind. They did this to me. Helen looked at Danny. Are you sure? The signatures match Valak's technology. Or, at least, technology the Valaks have access to. Danny ran a hand through his hair. They tested you, Morrison. They wanted to see if a human could survive quantum exposure. Jake stood up fast enough to make both humans step back. Anger burned in his chest, hot and fierce. They could have killed me. They almost did kill me, but they didn't. The new voice came from the doorway. Jake turned and saw an alien, unlike any he had seen before. It looked like a giant insect standing on two legs, with 4 arms and a head that was all angles and hard edges. Its skin was dark green and shiny like armor. When it spoke, its voice clicked and buzzed beneath the words. I am Ambassador Lorik, the creature said. I speak for the Consortium of Logical Species. We have been reviewing your case, Human Morrison. The Valaks have acted with questionable ethics in their treatment of you. Questionable? Jake felt his hands curl into fists. They threw me into something that should have killed me just to see what would happen. Yes, Lorik agreed. This is concerning. However, the results cannot be denied. You survived. More than survived. You have developed abilities that no human has shown before. This changes many calculations. Helen moved between Jake and the ambassador. What kind of calculations? Lorik's insect head tilted in a way that might have been a shrug. The calculations regarding humanity's value to the Assembly. If humans can survive quantum exposure, if you can develop quantum consciousness, then you are far more useful than we believed. But this also makes you more dangerous. We're not dangerous, Helen said firmly. You are young and violent and unpredictable. Lorik said without emotion. Every analysis confirms this. However, if you possess quantum potential, then excluding you from the Assembly becomes impossible. Quantum-capable species are too valuable, too rare. The ambassador turned his attention back to Jake. You are an experiment, Human Morrison. An experiment that succeeded. The question now is what happens next? Do you help your species rise, or do you refuse and let humanity fall? He needs time. Vera's voice cut in. She had appeared in the doorway behind Lorik. Jake has been awake for less than a week. You can't expect him to make these decisions now. On. 4010. 42. 4010. 42. 42. 4010. Time is something we do not have much of, Lorik said, but he stepped back. The Assembly will convene in 2 months. By then, humanity must demonstrate its resonance or face rejection. I suggest you prepare, Human Morrison. Many eyes are watching you now. The ambassador left, his movements stiff and mechanical. Helen followed him out, talking in low tones with Danny. Vera came to Jake's side. Are you okay? She asked. No. Jake sat back down on the bed. His hands were shaking. They used me, Vera. The Valaks. They didn't save me. They tested me like I was a lab animal. I know, and I'm sorry. Vera sat next to him. But Lorik is right about one thing. You survived something impossible. Your DNA has sequences that activated during the exposure. Kira showed me the scans. These sequences exist in every human, Jake. But they're dormant. Inactive. You're the first person to wake them up. Why me? Jake asked. It was the same question he kept asking, and no one had a good answer. Maybe it's random. Maybe it's something in your genetics. Or maybe, Vera said softly, maybe it's because you're the kind of person who flies into an anomaly trying to save your ship instead of just ejecting. Maybe it's because you don't give up. Jake wanted to believe that. He wanted to think he was chosen for a reason. But right now, all he felt was angry and scared, and trapped. The ship's alarm cut through his thoughts. A loud warning sound that made all three of them jump. Kira's voice came over the communication system. Calm, but urgent. All personnel to stations. We have received a distress call from Mining Colony 749. The colony is under attack by raiders. Captain Theron is changing course to provide assistance. Dr. Ashton, bring Morrison to the bridge immediately. Vera grabbed Jake's arm. Come on. Why do they need me? Jake asked as they ran through the corridors. I don't know. But Kira said to bring you, so we're bringing you. They reached the bridge in under 2 minutes. It was a large, circular room, filled with stations and screens. Valak's crew members worked at their posts, their blue hands moving across controls that looked like liquid light. Captain Theron stood in the center, tall and commanding, his silver eyes fixed on the main screen. Kira stood beside him. When she saw Jake, she nodded once. Jake Morrison, she said. This is what I meant. You're ready to show them what humans truly are. On the screen, Jake saw a small space station surrounded by 3 aggressive-looking ships. Laser fire flashed between them. People were dying out there. Human people, probably, along with whatever other species worked at that colony. And somehow, everyone on this bridge thought Jake could help. He looked at Kira's silver eyes and remembered her whispered words from that first day. You're ready now. Maybe it was time to find out if she was right. The Meridian dropped out of faster-than-light travel with a lurch that Jake felt in his bones. Through the main screen, he could see the mining colony clearly now. It was a small station built into an asteroid, with docking ports and processing facilities jutting out like metal branches. 3 raider ships circled it like predators, their weapons firing in short, controlled bursts. Status, Captain Theron commanded. One of the Valak's crew members spoke without looking up from his station. The raiders are Croton mercenaries. They're stripping the colony's refined metals. Life signs show 137 people still alive inside the station. But the number is dropping. Hull breaches in multiple sections. Can we engage the raider ships? Helen Wright asked. She had come to the bridge right behind Jake and Vera. Negative, Theron said. His voice was calm, but Jake could hear the frustration underneath. The raiders have positioned themselves too close to the colony. If we fire our main weapons, we risk hitting the station itself. And they know it. So we just watch? Jake could not keep the anger out of his voice. We just let them kill everyone down there? Kira turned to face him. No. We send someone to evacuate the survivors. Someone who can navigate a damaged station without instruments. Someone who can sense where it is safe to go and where the structure is about to fail. Everyone on the bridge looked at Jake. You want me to go down there, he said slowly. I want you to save them, Kira replied. This is what you were meant to do, Jake Morrison. This is why you survived the anomaly. Jake looked at the screen. He could see tiny figures moving behind the station windows. People trapped. People dying. He thought about running away. About telling them to find someone else. Someone trained for this. He was a cargo pilot. Not a soldier. Not anymore. But then he remembered Vera's words. Maybe you're the kind of person who doesn't give up. How do I get there? He asked. 20 minutes later, Jake sat in a small escape pod with Martin Cole, the colony's supervisor, who had managed to send the distress call before the communications array was destroyed. Martin was a big man with a scarred face and hands that looked like they had been broken and healed wrong more than once. He checked Jake's suit seals for the 3rd time. You sure about this, kid? Martin asked. His voice crackled through the suit radio. Those Croton down there don't take prisoners. I'm sure. Jake was not sure at all, but he tried to sound confident. The pod will get us close to docking port 7. It's damaged but still pressurized. From there, we go down to the lower levels where most of the survivors are hiding. The Croton are in the upper levels, grabbing everything valuable they can carry. The pod launched with a violent shove. Jake's stomach lurched as they shot away from the Meridian toward the spinning station. Through the small window, he could see the raider ships. They did not fire at the pod. Too small to bother with. Probably. They hit the docking port hard. The magnetic clamps engaged with a clang that echoed through the pod. Martin popped the hatch, and they climbed out into darkness. Jake's suit light came on automatically, but he did not need it. He could feel the station around him the same way he felt the meridian. The energy flows, the damaged circuits, the places where the walls were seconds away from buckling. It was all there in his mind like a map. "This way," he said, pointing down a corridor that looked blocked by debris. "That's blocked," Martin said. "Trust me." They climbed over twisted metal and broken equipment. Jake moved with confidence, his hands finding holds that he could not see but somehow knew were there. Behind him, Martin followed, breathing hard. They found the first survivors in a storage room sealed with an emergency door. 12 people, human and alien, huddled together in the dark. A young woman in an engineer's uniform stood guard at the door with a piece of pipe held like a weapon. Her name tag said Grant. "Who are you?" she demanded. "Rescue," Jake said simply. "We're getting you out." The woman, Sarah Grant according to Martin, stared at him. "Yes, we can." Jake could feel the station layout in his mind. "There's a maintenance shaft that runs under the main corridor. It will take us around the Croton positions." "That shaft was damaged in the attack," Sarah said. "The structure is unstable. I know where it's safe to walk. Follow me and step exactly where I step." They moved through the station like ghosts. Jake led them through passages that should have collapsed but held. He knew which doors to avoid, because he could sense the Croton waiting on the other side. He knew which corridors had air, and which were open to vacuum. But what surprised him most was the way the survivors looked at him. They were scared, terrified even. But when Jake met their eyes and told them it would be okay, they believed him. He could feel their fear lessening, their courage growing. It was like he was pushing calm into them the same way he could sense the energy in the walls. They reached a junction where they had no choice but to cross an exposed corridor. Through the windows, Jake could see one of the raider ships. And inside the corridor, 3 Croton mercenaries stood guard. The Croton were massive creatures, 8 feet tall and covered in thick armor plating that looked like it had grown from their skin. They carried heavy weapons that could cut through a hull with one shot. When they saw Jake's group, they raised their guns. Jake did not think. He moved on instinct, diving forward as the Croton fired. But something incredible happened. Jake knew where they would aim before they pulled the triggers. He could sense their intentions like ripples in water. He dodged left, and the shot went right. He rolled forward, and the second shot passed over his head. Martin and 2 other miners charged from behind, yelling and firing small weapons they had scavenged. The Croton turned toward them. Jake rose and ran straight at the nearest raider. He had no weapon. He had no training for this, but his body moved like he had done it 1,000 times. He slid under the Croton's weapon, grabbed the arm, and twisted in a way that should have been impossible. The massive creature staggered. Jake used the momentum to grab the weapon and fire point blank into the raider's armor. The shot punched through and the Croton fell. The other 2 raiders turned back toward Jake, but Martin and the miners had flanked them. In seconds, it was over. 3 Croton dead on the ground. 0 human casualties. "How did you do that?" Sarah breathed. She was staring at Jake like he was something from a dream. "I don't know," Jake said honestly. His hands were shaking. "I just knew where they would shoot. I could feel it." They kept moving. More survivors joined them from other hiding places. Martin spread the word through suit radios. "Follow Morrison. He knows the way." Soon they had 40 people moving through the station in a long line. The Croton realized what was happening. Alarms blared. Jake heard heavy footsteps coming from multiple directions. They were being boxed in. Trapped. They reached a sealed bulkhead that led to the docking bay. On the other side, Martin said, there were shuttles that could get them off the station. But the door was locked. The control panel sparked and smoked, damaged beyond repair. "We're stuck," Martin said grimly. Jake put his hand on the door. He could feel the lock mechanism inside. Complex. Electronic. But it was just energy and circuits, things he had been sensing for days now. He closed his eyes, and let his consciousness flow into the door like water finding cracks. It was easier than he expected. His mind touched the circuits, felt the locked magnetic seals. He did not know how to explain what he did next, but the door knew. The mechanism recognized something in Jake's touch and responded. The bulkhead hissed and slid open. Everyone stared at him. Vera's voice came over his suit radio. She had been monitoring from the meridian. "Jake, your neural activity just spiked to levels we've never recorded." "What did you do?" "Opened a door," Jake said quietly. They poured into the docking bay. 3 shuttles sat waiting. Old but functional. Martin started getting people aboard, organizing them by size and weight to balance the loads. That was when Sarah screamed. Jake turned and saw her on the other side of the bay. The floor beneath her had given way, part of the damage from the raider attack. She hung from a broken beam, her feet dangling over a drop into darkness. Below her, Jake could see straight through to space. "Hold on." Jake ran toward her, but the Croton were faster. 5 of them burst into the docking bay from the upper entrance. Weapons ready. They saw Jake running and opened fire. Shots tore through the air around him. One burned past his shoulder, close enough that he felt the heat through his suit. Jake reached Sarah and grabbed her hand. Behind him, Martin and the miners returned fire, but they were outgunned. Jake pulled Sarah up with strength he did not know he had. She scrambled over the edge, and they both ran for the nearest shuttle. "Everyone get aboard now," Martin shouted. "We're leaving." They piled into the shuttles and sealed the hatches. Martin took the pilot seat of Jake's shuttle. His hands flew over the controls with practiced ease. "Hold on, people. This is going to be rough." The shuttle launched, pulling away from the station hard enough to slam everyone against the walls. Through the window, Jake saw the raider ships reacting. One broke away from the station and came after them. "They're pursuing," Sarah said. She had strapped into the seat next to Jake. "We're too slow. They'll catch us before we reach the meridian." Jake looked at the shuttle controls. They were alien technology. Valak's design. Nothing like the human ships he had flown for years. But when he put his hand on the control panel, he felt it. The same connection he had felt with the doors, with the walls, with everything electronic. "Let me fly," he said. "What? Kid, do you even know how this works?" Martin asked. "I do now." Jake did not know how to explain it better than that. He just knew. He touched the controls and understood them completely. Martin hesitated, then unstrapped and moved aside. "Your funeral." Jake's hands moved over the controls. The shuttle responded like it was part of his body. He pushed the engines harder than they were designed to go. He wove through debris that Martin would have tried to avoid. He made turns that should have torn the hull apart but somehow held together. Behind them, the raider ship fired. Jake felt the shots coming before they arrived. He rolled the shuttle, turned hard, dove down and climbed up. Every shot missed by meters. The people in the shuttle screamed and held on. Sarah grabbed Jake's arm, but he barely noticed. His mind was spread across the shuttle, feeling every system, every circuit, every probability of where the raider would fire next. It was beautiful and terrifying, and Jake never wanted it to stop. They reached the Meridian's docking bay, traveling fast enough to kill everyone on impact. But Jake did not slow down. He could not explain why, but he knew the Meridian would catch them. He felt Kira on the bridge, her mind touching the same systems he touched, working with him instead of against him. The shuttle hit the landing field and magnetic clamps engaged, bringing them to a stop so smooth it felt like floating. Jake sat back. His hands were shaking. His whole body was shaking. But everyone on the shuttle was alive. Sarah looked at him with wide eyes. "You saved us. All of us." Jake did not know what to say to that. He had just flown a shuttle using instincts and abilities that did not exist a week ago. He had fought, trained soldiers and won. He had opened locked doors with his mind. Kira's voice came over the radio, soft and satisfied. "Now you understand, Jake Morrison. This is what it means to be ready." The rescue operation became news across the galaxy within hours. Every species in the Galactic Assembly saw the recordings. They watched Jake Morrison, a human who should not have survived quantum exposure, navigate a dying station using abilities that made no scientific sense. They watched him fight Croton raiders with precision that looked like he could see the future. They watched him fly a shuttle in ways that should have been impossible. The Assembly called an emergency session. Captain Theron received the summons 3 days after the rescue. Jake sat in his quarters when Vera came to tell him. "They want you there," she said. "The entire Assembly wants to see you in person. To understand what you are." "I'm just a guy," Jake said for what felt like the 100th time. But even he did not believe it anymore. Not after what he had done at the mining colony. The Assembly met in a massive station called Unity Point that floated in neutral space between territories. The Meridian traveled there with Jake aboard, along with Helen Wright, Vera, and a new arrival from Earth. Her name was Dr. Lisa Park, and she was a neuroscientist who specialized in studying how the brain processed information. Lisa was young, maybe 30, with sharp eyes that never stopped analyzing. She spent 2 full days running tests on Jake that made the Valix examinations look simple. She made him solve puzzles while machines scanned his brain. She showed him images and measured his reactions down to the microsecond. She made him tired in ways he had never felt before. On the 3rd day, Lisa called everyone together to share her findings. They met in a conference room with Kira, Theron, Vera, Helen, and one more person Jake had not met before. The man introduced himself as Agent Garrett Boyd from Earth Intelligence. He was bland-looking, forgettable, the kind of person who could disappear in a crowd. That alone made Jake distrust him. "I'll keep this simple," Lisa said, pulling up brain scans on the room's display. Jake's brain has formed quantum entanglement with local electromagnetic fields. His neural pathways don't just process information anymore. They interact with energy at a quantum level. "In English, please," Helen said. Lisa smiled. "He's not reading minds. He's reading the energy signatures that all living things produce. Thoughts create electrical impulses. Emotions change heart rates and breathing. Jake senses those changes before they become actions. That's how he knew where the Croton would shoot. He felt their intentions forming." "And the shuttle?" Vera asked. "How did he fly like that?" "He perceives probability clouds," Lisa explained. "At a quantum level, all possible futures exist at once, until they collapse into one reality. Jake can sense multiple potential outcomes and choose the path that leads where he wants to go. It's not quite seeing the future. It's more like seeing which futures are most likely and navigating toward them." Jake felt cold. "That's not possible. That's not how physics works." "It is how quantum physics works," Kira said quietly. "And it is how all quantum-capable species operate. The Valix, the Soltari, the handful of others who can touch the quantum realm. We all sense probability. We all interact with energy in ways that defy classical understanding. But humans aren't supposed to be able to do that," Jake said. "You told me I was the first." "You are the first to awaken," Kira agreed. "But you are not the first we tested." The room went silent. Jake felt something cold settle into his stomach. "What do you mean, tested?" Kira looked at Captain Theron, who nodded. She turned back to Jake. "The Valix have been searching for quantum-capable species for 3,000 years. We create controlled anomalies and expose candidates to quantum fluctuations. Most species die immediately. A few survive but show no changes. And once every few centuries, we find a species with the potential to awaken. How many humans did you test before me?" Jake's voice was barely a whisper. 7, Kira said without emotion. "All volunteers who knew the risks. 3 died instantly. 4 survived but showed no quantum development. You are the first human to successfully transition to quantum consciousness." Jake stood up so fast his chair fell over. "You killed 3 people? You murdered them? Just to see what would happen?" "They volunteered," Agent Boyd said. His voice was calm, rational. "They knew death was possible. They understood they were serving a greater purpose. And you knew about this? Jake turned to Helen. Earth knew? Helen met his eyes without flinching. Earth intelligence has been working with the Valaks for 5 years. Yes. We knew about the quantum exposure program. Yes. We approved the testing. And yes, we understand the ethical concerns. But we also understand what's at stake. Humanity's future in the galaxy depends on proving we have value to the Assembly. So you sacrificed people, Jake said. You threw them into death traps and hoped one would survive. We gave them a choice, Boyd said. Nobody was forced. And because of their sacrifice, you exist. You have abilities that can change everything for humanity. Jake wanted to hit him. He wanted to rage and scream and break things. But Vera put a hand on his shoulder. Gentle but firm. Jake, she said softly, I understand you're angry. You have every right to be. But right now, the entire Galactic Assembly is waiting to see what you'll do next. Whatever you're feeling, you need to focus on what comes next. What comes next is I leave, Jake said. I'm done being your experiment. You cannot leave. The new voice was deep and resonant, like stones grinding together. Jake turned and saw an alien enter the room. It was massive, easily 12 feet tall, with skin that looked like it was carved from ancient rock. 4 eyes glowed with soft golden light. It wore robes that seemed too delicate for its powerful frame. I am High Chancellor Moran, the creature said. I lead the Galactic Assembly. I have come personally to meet the human who has awakened quantum consciousness. Everyone in the room stood straighter. Even Captain Theron showed deference to this being. Moran moved slowly, each step deliberate. He stopped in front of Jake and looked down at him with those glowing eyes. You are angry, Moran observed. Good. Anger means you understand the weight of what has been done to you. Anger means you are not a fool. On me. They killed people, Jake said. They killed humans just to test a theory. Yes. And those deaths weigh heavily on all who approved them. But Jake Morrison, I must ask you to see beyond your anger to a greater crisis. Your emergence has come at a critical time. Moran waved one massive hand, and the room's display changed. It showed a region of space that pulsed with sickly colors. Reds and purples and colors Jake had no names for, swirled together like an infected wound. This is the Talos sector, Moran said. 2 weeks ago, a quantum tear formed there. It grows larger every day. If it is not sealed, it will destabilize the entire star system. 3 inhabited planets. 17 billion people. All will die. The room felt like all the air had been sucked out. Jake stared at the image. What's a quantum tear? A rupture in the fabric of space-time, Lisa explained. Where the quantum realm bleeds into normal space. It's like a hole in reality itself. Can't you fix it? Jake asked. We have tried, Moran said. We sent our best quantum-capable individuals. All failed. The tear is too large, too unstable. It requires someone with abilities we have never seen before. It requires someone who can sense probability on a scale that spans light years. Someone who can touch reality itself and reshape it. Jake felt everyone looking at him. He shook his head. No, absolutely not. I'm not risking my life for people who lied to me, who experimented on me. 17 billion people will die, Moran said simply. Men, women, children. Entire civilizations will be erased. And you have the power to save them. Find someone else. There is no one else. Kira stepped forward. Jake, I know you feel betrayed. I know what we did was wrong, but you are the only quantum-capable being in this galaxy who might be strong enough to seal that tear. If you refuse, those people die, and their blood will be on all our hands, including yours. That's not fair, Jake said, his voice cracked. I didn't ask for this. I didn't want these abilities. You forced them on me. And now you want me to die closing some hole in space? Not die, Moran said. We hope you survive. But yes, there is significant risk. Every simulation we have run suggests the probability of your survival is less than 30%. 30%, Jake repeated. He looked around the room. At Kira, who had whispered those words that started everything. At Vera, who had tried to help him understand. At Helen, who saw him as a political tool. At Boyd, who had approved experiments that killed people. At Lisa, who studied him like a puzzle to solve. And at Moran, ancient and powerful, asking him to sacrifice himself for strangers. What happens if I say no? Jake asked. Then you say no, Moran replied. We cannot force you. We will not force you. The choice must be yours, and yours alone. But 17 billion people will die knowing that a human had the power to save them and chose not to try. Jake sat down. His hands were shaking again. The buzzing in his head that never stopped grew louder, like the universe itself was screaming at him. He thought about the mining colony. About Sarah hanging from that beam. About Martin and the other survivors who had trusted him to lead them to safety. He had saved them. 47 people had gone home to their families because Jake Morrison chose to act instead of hiding. 17 billion was just a number too big to understand. But Jake knew that each one of those billions was a person like Sarah. Like Martin. People with families and friends and hopes and fears. If I do this, Jake said slowly. If I try to close this tear, Earth gets into the assembly immediately. No more tests. No more experiments. And every bit of data you have on quantum awakening gets shared with human scientists. No more secrets. Moran tilted his massive head. You would negotiate for your people even now? When you have every reason to hate what they have done to you? I'm angry, Jake said. But I'm still human. And humans don't leave people behind if we can help it. Even when those people hurt us first. Moran's eyes brightened. This is wisdom. The Assembly agrees to your terms. Earth will be granted provisional membership immediately. All quantum research will be shared freely. Is this acceptable? Jake looked at Kira. You said I was ready. When you leaned over me that first day and whispered those words. What did you mean? Kira's silver eyes held something that might have been sadness or pride or both. I meant that you have the heart of someone who saves others instead of himself. I meant that you would choose to try, even knowing you might fail. I meant that you were already the person you needed to be. You just did not know it yet. I might die doing this, Jake said. Yes, you might die. But you might also save 17 billion people and prove that humanity deserves to stand among the stars. Kira moved closer. The choice is yours. Jake Morrison, what will you choose? Jake closed his eyes. He felt the ship around him. He felt the quantum realm buzzing at the edges of his consciousness. He felt scared and angry and tired. But he also felt something else. A sense of purpose, of meaning. I'll do it, he said. I'll try to close the tear. Moran placed one massive hand on Jake's shoulder. Then humanity has earned its place in the Galactic Assembly. Whatever happens in the Talos sector, know that your species will be remembered for producing someone willing to sacrifice everything for strangers. That is a resonance worth more than any ability. Jake opened his eyes and looked at the image of the quantum tear on the display. It looked like a wound in the universe itself. And somehow, he was supposed to heal it. He just hoped he would survive long enough to find out if he could. The journey to the Talos sector took 3 days at maximum speed. Jake spent most of that time alone in his quarters, trying to prepare for something he could not begin to understand. How did you prepare to dive into a tear in reality itself? How did you get ready to die? Vera came to see him on the second day. She brought food that Jake could not eat, and sat with him in silence for an hour. Finally, she spoke. You know you don't have to do this, she said. You could still say no. Nobody would blame you. Yes, they would, Jake said quietly. And I would blame myself. For the rest of my life, I would see those 17 billion faces in my dreams. You're braver than you think you are. I'm terrified. That's what makes it brave. Vera squeezed his hand. Jake, whatever happens out there, You've already proven something important. You've proven that humans can choose to be more than we are. That we can sacrifice for others even when we have every reason to be selfish. That's worth more than any quantum ability. Quote. End quote. On the third day, they arrived. The science vessel that would take Jake to the tear was called the Seeker. It was smaller than the Meridian, built for research rather than diplomacy. Captain Sharon Miller commanded it, a woman with calm eyes who had seen more of deep space than most humans could imagine. I've taken my ship close to quantum tiers before, Sharon told Jake as they prepared the special pod that would carry him into the tear. But never this close. And never with a person actually going inside. Are you sure you understand what you're about to do? No, Jake admitted. But I'm going to do it anyway. Kira helped him into the pod. It was a small sphere made of materials that could withstand quantum fluctuations better than any ship hull. Inside was barely enough room for Jake to sit, with his knees pulled up to his chest. Life support, communication equipment, nothing else. The pod will carry you to the edge of the tear, Kira explained. From there, you must enter on your own. Once inside, you will experience time and space differently. What feels like hours to you, maybe seconds to us, or days, we cannot predict. What am I supposed to do when I'm inside? Jake asked. His voice echoed in the small space. You must sense the fabric of space-time around the tear. Find where it is damaged, and somehow weave it back together. Kira paused. Jake, I do not know if this is possible. No one has ever successfully closed a quantum tear of this size. But if anyone can do it, you can. Before Kira sealed the pod, Sierra Grant appeared. She had insisted on coming along on the Seeker, saying she needed to see this through. She looked at Jake through the pod's small window. Thank you, she said simply, for saving us at the mining colony, for trying to save everyone else now. You're a good person, Jake Morrison. I'm just trying to do the right thing, Jake said. That's what makes you good. The pod sealed. Jake felt the ship's systems engage, felt the pod being moved into position. Through the small window, he could see the quantum tear. It was massive, easily 100,000 kilometers across. Colors that should not exist swirled and pulsed. Looking at it made Jake's eyes hurt, and his head buzz with static. Sharon's voice came through the communication system. We're releasing the pod in 10 seconds. Jake, it's been an honor. Good luck out there. Thank you, Captain. The pod launched. Jake felt brief weightlessness, and then artificial gravity kicked in. The pod flew toward the tear with slow, deliberate speed, giving him time to see what he was approaching. It looked like a wound in the universe itself, just like Moran had said. Reality bled at its edges. Stars behind it appeared twisted and wrong. As the pod got closer, Jake felt the quantum realm pressing against his mind. It was like standing next to a waterfall of pure energy. The buzzing in his head became a roar. He closed his eyes and tried to center himself the way Kira had taught him. The pod reached the edge of the tier and stopped. An automated voice spoke. Quantum boundary reached. Manual exit required. This was it. The moment of choice. Jake could still order the pod to turn around. He could still choose to live. But those 17 billion people would die. No one gets left behind. Jake whispered to himself. It had been his unit's motto when he served in Earth forces. He had lived by those words once. It was time to live by them again. Jake opened the pod hatch. The quantum realm crashed into him like a physical force. His body stayed in the pod, but his consciousness exploded outward. Suddenly he was everywhere and nowhere. He existed in all moments at once. Past, present, and future collapsed into a single eternal now. Jake could see the Seeker behind him. He could see Kira on the Meridian, watching displays and praying to gods the Valaks claimed they did not believe in. He could see Earth, his home, where billions of humans lived and loved and died without knowing that one of their own was trying to save strangers in a sector of space they had never heard of. But he could also see the tear, really see it. Not as a physical thing, but as a wound in the tapestry of reality. Space and time were woven together like threads in cloth, and something had torn those threads apart. The tear spread slowly but steadily, unraveling reality as it grew. Jake reached out with his mind. He touched the torn threads. They felt like electricity and ice and music all at once. He tried to pull them together, to weave them back the way they belonged. But the threads resisted. They had been torn apart with such violence that they did not want to reconnect. Pain exploded through Jake's consciousness. His body in the pod began to shake. Alarms sounded. He heard Vera's voice screaming his name through the communication system. But she sounded so far away. This was not working. He could not just force the threads back together. The damage was too old. Too deep. Something had caused this tear long ago. Maybe thousands of years ago. A weapon. A war. Jake could sense the echo of violence in the torn fabric. He was going to fail. He was going to die here, and the tear would keep growing and everyone would die anyway. Then Jake felt something else. A warmth. A connection. He realized that his quantum consciousness was not isolated. Every human on Earth, aware of it or not, existed in the same quantum field. Their thoughts and emotions created ripples that Jake could sense even from light years away, and they were thinking about him. News of his mission had reached Earth. Billions of people were watching, hoping, praying. They sent their strength to him across the vast distance. Not intentionally. They did not know how. But it did not matter. The quantum realm connected them all. Jake was not alone. He had never been alone. He stopped trying to force the threads back together. Instead, he understood what he needed to do. He needed to heal the tear. Not just seal it. He needed to remove the ancient violence that had caused it in the first place. Jake dove deeper into the quantum realm. His consciousness spread across light years. He found the source of the tear. The echo of the weapon that had created it. It was old technology, maybe from a species that no longer existed, but its energy signature remained, keeping the wound open. Jake touched that signature. He felt its violence, its hatred, its desire to destroy. And he pushed against it with something stronger. With humanity's stubborn refusal to give up, with the courage of strangers who had volunteered to be test subjects knowing they might die, with Syrah's gratitude, and Martin's trust, and Vera's faith, and even Kira's hope, the ancient weapon's energy signature began to dissolve. It fought back, trying to maintain its grip on reality. But Jake was stronger. He had 17 billion people depending on him. He had humanity's entire future riding on this moment. The energy signature shattered. Jake felt the threads of space-time recognize what he had done. They began to reconnect on their own, weaving back together like a wound closing. The tear started to shrink. Slowly at first, then faster. Reality healed itself now that the violence was gone, but the effort was destroying Jake. His consciousness was spread too thin. His body in the pod was failing. He could feel his heart struggling. His brain shutting down. He had done what was needed, but the cost was too high. He was dying. Then he felt them again. All those humans on Earth. All those quantum connections he had sensed before. They reached out to him, not knowing they were doing it. And they held him together. They gave him their strength, their life force, their hope, and something incredible happened. Jake did not just survive. He changed. His quantum consciousness stabilized at a level that should not be possible. His body transformed, adapting to exist in both the quantum realm and normal space simultaneously. His eyes opened, and they glowed with soft light, the same light that had filled the quantum tear. He had become something new, something that had never existed before. Jake pulled his consciousness back into his body. The pod's alarms stopped. Through the window, he saw the tear was gone. Reality was whole again. 17 billion people would live to see tomorrow. Jake? Vera's voice was shaking. Jake, please respond. Your readings are all over the place. Are you alive? I'm alive, Jake said. His voice sounded different to his own ears. Deeper. Resonant. The tier is closed. It's healed. They're safe. The celebration on the Seeker and the Meridian lasted for hours. But Jake felt distant from it all. He sat in the medical bay while Lisa ran scans that made no sense. His body had changed on a cellular level. He existed partially in the quantum realm all the time now. He would never be completely human again. How do you feel? Vera asked him when they were alone. Different, Jake said honestly. I can sense everyone now, not just their emotions. I can feel their consciousness. Every human in this sector of space. Every Valix. Every species. We're all connected through the quantum realm. We always were. I just never knew it before. Does it hurt? No, it's beautiful. Jake smiled. I understand now what Kira meant. About being ready. It wasn't about having abilities. It was about being willing to use them for something bigger than myself. 2 weeks later, Earth was formally inducted into the Galactic Assembly. High Chancellor Moran himself performed the ceremony. Jake stood on the stage with Helen Wright and Ambassador Lorik and Captain Theron, but all eyes were on him. Jake Morrison has proven beyond doubt that humanity possesses a unique resonance, Moran announced to the assembled species. Adaptive quantum consciousness, combined with the moral courage to sacrifice for others. This is a gift to our entire civilization. Earth is welcome among the stars. The assembly chamber erupted in sounds that might have been applause in dozens of different species. Jake felt their approval through the quantum realm. Even Lorik, who had doubted humans from the start, radiated respect. But the real work began after the ceremony. Jake's transformation had proven that other humans could awaken their quantum potential too. The assembly agreed to help train them, using methods that were safer than throwing people into spatial anomalies. 6 months later, Jake stood in a training facility on the moon. Earth rose above the horizon, blue and white and beautiful. Before him stood 12 volunteers, the first candidates for quantum awakening. Vera was among them, Danny Hayes, even Martin Cole from the mining colony. They looked at Jake with hope and fear mixed together. He understood exactly how they felt. I know you're scared, Jake told them. I was scared too. I still am sometimes. The quantum realm is vast and strange, and it will change you in ways you can't predict. But it will also show you something incredible. It will show you that we're all connected. Every human, every species. We're all part of something bigger than ourselves. Will it hurt? One of the volunteers asked. Yes, Jake said honestly. Growth always hurts. Change always costs something. But it's worth it. You'll see. Kira had come to help with the training. She stood beside Jake now, her silver eyes warm with pride. She leaned close and whispered, They're ready now. Just like you were. Jake smiled. I had no idea what you meant when you said that to me. Do you understand now? Yes. Jake looked at the volunteers. At the humans who were about to take the same journey he had taken. Being ready doesn't mean you're not afraid. It means you choose to try anyway. It means you trust yourself to become more than you are. He activated the quantum training field. Soft light filled the room. The volunteers gasped as they felt the quantum realm touch their minds for the first time. Jake guided them gently, helping them understand what they were sensing, helping them take their first steps into a larger universe. As he worked, Jake thought about everything that had happened. The anomaly. The mining colony. The quantum tier. All the pain and fear and growth. He thought about Kira leaning over him in that medical bay, whispering words he could not understand. Now he understood perfectly. Now he could say those same words to others who were afraid and lost and becoming something new. You're ready now, Jake told the volunteers. Let me show you why. And he did. He showed them the quantum realm. He showed them the connections between all living things. He showed them that humanity's greatest strength was not technology, or weapons, or even quantum consciousness. It was the choice to help others even when it was hard, even when it was scary, even when it might cost everything. That was humanity's true resonance, and it would shine across the galaxy for generations to come. Jake had been a cargo pilot once. Nobody special, nobody important, but he had chosen to become something more. Not because he wanted power, not because he sought glory, but because when the universe asked him to save strangers, he said yes. That choice had changed everything. And as Jake watched the new volunteers take their first steps into quantum consciousness, he knew that choice would keep changing things, human by human, connection by connection, until the entire galaxy understood what it meant to be ready. To be ready meant to care, to sacrifice, to choose courage over comfort. It meant to be human. And that, Jake thought with a smile, was worth every moment of fear and pain and growth. That was worth everything.